guys, it's Sam, and this is a little update to my witchy journey. And this was a video topic that was voted on by my bibliothecary supporters, so every month my bibliothecary supporters get to vote in a poll for a video topic that I'll do, books that I'll read. We have a Discord group, a lot of stuff. We're watching spooky, like, not really spooky because I don't do scary, but like Halloween movies this season. We'll probably switch into Christmas after that. Watch-alongs together. We're doing a lot of that kind of stuff. So if you want to join that fun, I will link the bibliothecary on the screen. So I want to do a little update to my witchy journey because I do feel like since I made the original like woo-woo spiritual journey video, not a ton has changed, but enough has changed. That's like the way that I talked about things there isn't quite the same. I do think that you should watch that video though if you haven't, if you just like stumbled across this video, hi, hello. But watch that video first because you'll kind of get, I talk about my background, religious background, background of OCD that affected a lot of things before I got into witchcraft, things like that. And you'll kind of see where I started, which is probably a little bit over 1.5 years ago now, compared to where I am now. So first things first is that, again, I called that sort of like woo-woo stuff, spiritual, whatever. I say witchcraft now. I am a witch. I did get a few people sort of commenting that, saying that like the term sort of like woo-woo can be a little bit condescending or like flippant. And that was never the intention. More so like I was still coming out of a place, like I mentioned in that video, where I was like very kind of like leery, not quite scared, that's like a little bit too strong of a word, but very much like, I don't really know what this is, like I don't really know if I didn't really feel comfortable identifying as a witch at that point. Like I feel like I didn't know enough, and I kind of like stand by that. Like I think that me using the term sort of like I'm into this like woo-woo stuff was fine for where I was at that point. But now I definitely am like, I'm a witch. I do witchy shit. Usually I will tell people I do witchy shit when they do ask about stuff like that. But similar to what I said in that original video of what I thought I would land on for like a label, even though I don't really talk about the label very much unless I'm talking with other witchy people. But the label that I do kind of land on is that I am a secular agnostic witch. Eclectic probably too. Because I am still kind of deciding what I lean most into. If you were to like kind of look at my practice and what I do the most of, I would say that I do rely more on like lunar magic. I do a lot of stuff around moon cycles and things, just because I think it's easy for me. So I don't know if I would completely say I'm a lunar witch, but I do have a lot of lunar witch type practices. So I still just say I'm like secular, agnostic, eclectic, because I pull from a lot of places. So I just kind of wanted to mention some of the things that I have sort of like gotten into since I made that video and like sort of learned about and where I am now and what are the things that I'm interested in now. I will say that even though I am a witch and you can be any kind of witch and witches don't always do like spells, I'm not a huge spellcraft witch. I would like to do more, but I'm still very much stuck in this like, I never want to do a spell unless it's like super important, and then I never know what's important enough. This is just a me thing. No one has told me this. But I'm always like, I don't really know like what I want to do a spell about. And I also am like, very leery of, you know, like magic in the universe, you need to be like very clear. And so I never want to like say something too vague and then the universe be like, here, and be like, that's not what I wanted. You know what I mean? So I'm very kind of like, if you don't really need it, I don't really care to do a spell about it. So that's why things like people do like money and prosperity spells, and like, sure, I could always use money, but like, I'm not like desperate for it at this point in my life. Like I have a fairly stable life as of right now. So my fear would always be if I do something for money and then I'm like not clear enough, like my house will burn down and like that's where I'll get like a lump sum of money or something. So I'm just kind of like, I don't want to fuck with it unless it's like super important. So I don't do a ton of spells. I have done a few. I'm much more of like a ritual person. So like I do regular cleansing and protection type stuff. I do a lot of like ritual baths. That's like a big thing for me. I do like some candle magic. I will talk about that in a second. That kind of thing tends to be like, rituals tend to be more of a thing. A little bit with like some affirmations, but I'm not like a huge affirmation person. And then I also will like pair ritual with crystals a lot. So I do feel like this is like a very organic progression from what I talked about in the first video of like, I'm pretty into crystals. Oh, tarot is still a thing that I'm like very into. Those kinds of things. I've continued to be that way. I've just kind of built on some of that stuff. So I have a pretty big crystal collection, mostly tumbled stones though still. I'm not somebody that has like huge crystals that are worth like $70+. Like I'm very much still a tumbled stone person. But like I said, I will sort of like pair that. Like if I'm taking a ritual bath, for example, I'll use like the herbs and things that go with whatever that intention is, and then a couple of crystals like around the bath that are water safe. I don't usually put them in the bath anyway, but just to be careful, that go with that intention. Like that's a thing that's like pretty common for me to do. I did mention earlier in the last video that lunar magic did appeal to me, and I have stuck very much with like lunar cycles as something that I use to kind of like still be involved in my witchiness. When I went through my reading slump, if you follow my booktube channel, when I went through my reading slump, I was also going through kind of like a witchy slump too. Like I wasn't really doing a lot of witchy stuff. So the moon cycles are easiest, I would say, to kind of like still stick to. So I pretty consistently have always done stuff around the full and new moons. That's when I do like my cleansing of my space, both energetically and physically. And it's just really easy to pair stuff with. And then more concretely within the last like month or so, I've actually made like a cleaning list of, again, like physical space and spiritual space for like all the cycles, like, well, all of the major ones, you know, full, new, first quarter, third quarter. And then again, kind of what are the cleaning things I want to do around this time? What are the energetic things I want to do around this time? Whatever. And so I pretty consistently do that. And like I said, ritual bath tends to be a thing along that time as well. I've continued to be into astrology. I still have so much to learn and I don't know everything. I know much more about just like my own stuff, but in the last year I got a reading from a professional astrologer, very eye-opening. I still need to go back and kind of go over the reading. We did it via like Zoom and it's recorded, so I need to go back and kind of like listen to some of the stuff she said, maybe like journal about it and do some like shadow work about it or whatever. But very insightful. You know, she didn't know anything about me, and like really there were some things in my chart that I was like, ooh, yeah. So I'm actually thinking about getting another reading for the new year. A lot of astrologers will do like 18 months, like your next 18 months, what are the stars kind of, what are they doing in your personal chart? So I'm kind of interested in doing that. I think that'd be kind of like insightful. So I am into that. I know some very like basic things about astrology, still into it, but astrology is like such a deep hole that you can get into that it's extensive. So I'm still much more like, I can go to the professionals for like the deep dives. Tarot and oracle cards are still like, love it. I will say that my favorite deck, and which I kind of knew would always be, like my soul deck, is the Oak, Ash, and Thorn Tarot. If you're part of the Bibliothecary, that's the tarot deck I use the most for our monthly readings. And I do have a walkthrough that I will post on the screen. That is my favorite deck. I use it the most. And I do still do, I've kind of gone off of this within the last like year or so, well, not even like the last handful of months, but I used to pretty consistently do readings for the full, new moons, and holidays. I'll get to the wheel of the year in a second. And I don't always do them now, mostly because I think I'm at a stage where I need to go even deeper into tarot. I want to get some of the more extensive tarot books. I have a few of them on my list that I like know are really good, to get a little bit deeper, because sometimes I'll do a reading and the card will feel like it doesn't really match the question, but I know that they do, but I need to go deeper. So like, I think that's gonna help me out a lot, but I will occasionally go through times where I'll do one card pulls. I will occasionally do like shadow work attached to cards, things like that. So I would say my most reliable witchy practice is tarot reading, only for myself. And I'm still, again, like, I don't have all the cards memorized. Like I tend to kind of know, I know like most of the major arcana, but like not all the cards, like as much as I do tarot, I don't have it all memorized. I still have to look stuff up. So it is kind of crazy to see like people who are like experienced tarot readers, that they can pull a card and know what it is. And it's not just memorization. It's very wild. I have 2 tarot decks that I have supported on Kickstarter lately, which makes me actually think that I should go and look at some more, because that was a few months ago. But I have 2 tarot card decks coming. That's the Literary Tarot, and then the other one's Oracle. It's the Embroidered Graveyard Oracle deck, which was supposed to be here this month, but it's gonna come late because of all the shipping stuff. That one's a Between Life and Death Oracle deck. Ugh! So I'm very excited about that. Yes, collections of tarot and oracle cards, definitely something that I will continue to do, but I'm pretty good about like not getting too many, because again, I have my soul deck. So I said in my last video that I'm not really interested in deity work, and that continues to be true. I'm not really interested in it right now, but I can definitely see myself in the future potentially getting into it a little bit more. And like I said in my last video, I do plan on it being more of like a working with a certain archetype more so than anything. But right now I am reading Jailbreaking the Goddess, and it is a like kind of unique view on the divine feminine and like goddesses and the 5-faced goddesses instead of 3-faced, and it's very interesting, and I can see myself kind of getting into some of the goddess archetypes through that framework. So yeah, I do really want to get a altar system. I didn't plan on talking about this, but this is actually a good segue. So the reason I haven't started any kind of like deity anything is because I do want to have some kind of like little altar space. I would say that the honeycomb shelves that many of you have probably seen in videos and things, I have a lot of my witchcraft stuff on those shelves, but right now I just have like a box with a bunch of my other shit in it, and then I just kind of stash it under my bed. Not to hide it, but just because it's a good place to put it right now. I'm trying to find a like floor shelf system with glass doors that I can kind of make into like a apothecary organizational thing and then put altar stuff on top. So I want to have like my herbs and like cute jars in there, some of my witchcraft books in there, any of my witchy items in there, and then my altar space. So that's why I haven't like officially even really thought about doing any kind of deity work, because I want like a more designated space than I have right now. And finding this particular kind of furniture piece that I want is very hard. I've been looking at like thrift stores, Facebook marketplaces, all of that. Can't find exactly what I want, but eventually I will have that space. Carrying over from that, I mentioned that I wasn't really interested in ever working with spirits. I'm still a little like, I'm not really interested still in working with like demons or angels. No, I don't think that's ever gonna be me, ever. Never say never, I guess, but like I don't see it. But I have gotten more interested in ancestor work and ancestor veneration and things like that. So that might be a thing in my future. Again, I'm not like necessarily saying it's right around the corner or anything, but there is a book that I plan on reading. I can't tell you the name right now. It's on my Amazon wish list, about like ancestor work. I do have some like funny recently deceased people, like people that I knew that I think would be like cool to connect with if that is possible, as well as like I come from a line of like sort of like Celtic peoples, and like I don't know, there was some witches in there. Will you come say hi to me? I don't know, like I just think that would be fun. So we'll see about that. Again, not like first on the list or anything, but there's more potential there than there might have been when we first talked about this topic. I mentioned before a little bit of like candle magic. I have gotten a little bit more into candle magic. If there's going to be any spells done by me, it will probably be more of the candle magic stuff, because I do think it's a very like easy thing to start with. I do have a book that I recently read. There should be a review. It's either up now or it will be coming up by the time I post this video, but there's a whole book on candle magic I recently read and really loved. It was like the best witchcraft book I've read so far, and so I do really enjoy candle magic and will continue to like work and practice with that. The other thing that I really like to learn more about is chaos magic. I have done some reading on sigils, but not specifically chaos magic sigils. I want to go and learn a little bit more about chaos magic and like specifically servitors. I find them the most intriguing, and I would like one. So I'm looking into that kind of stuff. I don't think I could be like a full chaos witch, but servitors in particular intrigue me. The last piece is a little bit about the holidays. That has been something that, like I said, I was always typically doing a tarot card reading and stuff, and then I kept saying that I wanted to celebrate the different holidays, like Ostara and Beltane. Like this year I was like, I'm going to celebrate more of the holidays, and then I just didn't until Mabon, or the Equinox. I don't tend to call it Mabon, but I know that people do. But the Autumnal Equinox was the first time that I really did something. I did something like I did my sort of like spiritual cleaning and whatever, but then I also did some almost like kitchen witchcraft a little bit. Like I made a autumnal syrup that I then used at a fall equinox party that I had for apple cider mimosas. I didn't necessarily put any like intention into that. It wasn't necessarily like a spell, but it felt very witchy. And I had this, like I said, like this party, and I'm gonna continue, I think, to go along that path. I did read this year The Year of the Witch by Temperance Alden, which talks a lot about the traditional Wheel of the Year, but then also how to kind of create your own. I've been talking to other witches about like how they celebrate and especially if people are non-Wiccan, which is most people that I know are non-Wiccan, sort of what holidays they choose to celebrate and integrate and things. And so over the next year, I think I'll be doing more of that. I do tend to really like the holidays that are on the dark half of the wheel of the year. So the equinox, Samhain, Yule, all of that. But I less connect to the spring and summer things. Here and there I do. So I think I'm gonna like kind of see what fits this year. I plan on doing a party for Samhain, not Halloween, because Samhain is actually happening after Halloween this year. Something for Samhain. I plan on celebrating, like officially celebrating Yule this year and doing more with that. So I'm getting a little bit more into like the holidays. What I really like about the witchy holidays is that they happen every like 6 weeks, which makes bad parts of the year, not that any part of the year is like bad, but parts of the year that drag, for example, like winter, go by almost a little bit faster when it's like you have a new holiday coming up and like you're just a little bit more aware of like the seasons and weather and things. And I feel like these kind of things connect you more to the seasons and stuff. So I would say the equinoxes are things that I'll probably celebrate a little bit more. This has this Hades and Persephone vibe to it, which I like from just a Hades Persephone perspective. I am not opposed to potentially in my future doing some Hades Persephone deity work or worship. I don't know. I just feel like that feels inevitable at some point. So I can see myself like celebrating the equinoxes because of her like, you know, transition between the two worlds kind of thing. I just think it's cool. I was talking to a friend about practicing holidays, and she also celebrates the founding of her town and like commemorating or like honoring the spirit of her town, which I think is really cool. I live in Chicago. And so the Chicago spirit feels a little bit daunting. However, I'm still a little bit like maybe. But the actual founding of Chicago happened on my birthday. So doing stuff for my birthday and Chicago feels like a little bit too much. So I don't think I'll necessarily do that, but maybe I'll find like another date around Chicago. Someone else, or I think it was my same friend, suggested maybe my, like when my neighborhood was founded, because Chicago is a series of neighborhoods. I couldn't quite find that date, like that concrete date. Like I think I found the year but not like the date, so that's a little bit harder, and I don't quite resonate with that. Like more so like the spirit of Chicago feels like it resonates more, so I might do something with that. We're just kind of figuring out, possibly looking into more like folk magic. I mentioned a little bit before about like my ancestors being more like Celtic, so looking maybe into more like Celtic folk magic. Maybe there's some more holidays in that line of things, finding out a little bit more about the deities on that side of things, whatever, in the future. Again, I don't know when that's necessarily going to happen, but yes. The last piece of it is not necessarily a magical piece, but I do feel like I have leaned even heavier into looking like a fucking witch. I have looked like a witch, I would say, for a while, as far as like I wear like darker lipstick a lot of times and I have my talon nails. But I started shopping at like aesthetically witchy shops for like clothing, and I love that. It resonates a lot. Like I like looking like a witch. I mean, like that's not the only point of being one. Like I know there's this whole like aesthetics versus realness within witch communities, and I'm like, why not both? So yeah, I've really enjoyed kind of leaning into that aesthetic, which, as I mentioned in my last video, I probably would have leaned into as a teen. So this is part of this, like, that a lot of people do, you know, you sort of like relive things you didn't get to do necessarily when you were a youth. But yeah, I'm really digging the like witchy vibes, dressing like a witch as well. It's fun. I think that is it for all of the witchy things. So things have sort of like calmed down on one side of things. Like I don't feel quite as overwhelmed by all of the information, and I've zoomed in a little bit, niched down on what I want to learn about. But there still is a ton of stuff I could still learn about. Like I don't feel like I know, by no means do I feel like I know anything near anything. But like I definitely now am very clear on like these are the things I sort of want to like get into, and I feel, like I said, very content identifying as a witch to other witches. So even though I didn't do the traditional Wiccan like year and a day of studying, it almost inadvertently happened where like about a year into knowing and learning about witchcraft is when I started actually like identifying as a witch, because I felt like I knew enough to like feel solidly in my practice, which is nice. I feel very confident in it, which is, again, very, very nice. And that also speaks to how much I've overcome the anxiety stuff, mostly due to medication. I'm gonna be honest, mine was a very chemical thing. But, you know, I don't feel scared saying I'm a witch or that I do witchcraft in the way that I was. Even when I first made the video, I was still a little bit leery, you know, so yay witches. So comment below, let me know how your spiritual witchcraft journey is going, especially if you watched my last video. A lot of you said, you know, you were really interested in this kind of thing and you were also looking into it and whatever. So I would love to know where your practice has gone since we last spoke about it. So thank you all for watching and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.